How much is your talent and time worth? The reality is that many of us are clueless. We oftentimes gauge our potential income earning when applying for a job on what the job is offering, which oftentimes is based on what the previous person in that position was making. And then we think about the job we were doing before or currently have and use that as a yardstick for what we can potentially make moving forward. Sounds convoluted? It is convoluted. The reality is that it's a lot more simple because we are oftentimes underselling ourselves when applying for a job. So what is the answer? Well, I have 3 amazing facts and solutions that you can apply in order to ensure you get the maximum amount of money when you're applying for the next amazing job. I'm Michael Robinson, and this is Think Like an Entrepreneur, Succeed in Your Career. So from an entrepreneurial perspective, this is what I mean. When a business is thinking of selling a service or a product in a market space, it knows what the average price of that product can be sold at based on market conditions, based on the location, based on the cost of farm to table. But there are 2 other things that oftentimes fall into the realm that takes the price point higher: demand for the product and a competitive advantage. Those are 2 things that can make that price point go a little bit higher so you can get the maximum amount of money for the goods or service you're selling. Do you see the parallel between the entrepreneurial perspective and the career perspective? Well, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to give you the solutions in a bit, but don't forget, follow me on YouTube, like my posts, engage me in conversation. Questions are welcomed, comments are certainly welcomed. Also, I'm daily on Microbin Radio. Download our free app from the App Store, or podcasts on iTunes. Look for The Michael S. Robinson Show. So who gets to decide what you earn on your next job? Is it your employer or is it you? Well, the reality is that your employer will decide ultimately what you earn. However, you can have a leg up if you understand the 3 elements I'm about to share with you. But before we begin, let's talk about the infrastructure of the company, the marketplace we're dealing with. Are you applying for a job with a small company or a large business? Because both come with different salary ranges and price points. A non-for-profit generates lower volumes of money, lower profit margins, therefore they pay lower wages. However, there's a feel-good feeling when you work for a non-for-profit because usually they are a do-good company. So you give up maybe making as much money as you would make with Goldman Sachs when you work for a non-for-profit, but you feel good about it. So understanding the infrastructure of how these companies' business models work and understanding the geographic location, because what you earn in New York City would be different from what you earn in Florida. So here are the 3 elements I want to share with you. The first one is know your demand factor. What is your demand factor? Well, this is what I mean by that. Remember what I said earlier about when you apply for a job, there's a price point or a wage that's given to you based on what the employer is asking for that position. Well, you need to know what you're worth. So you need to research what your going rate is in the market, because ultimately that is what you're worth, not what somebody's willing to pay you. So do your research. There's a company that once said, an educated consumer is the best customer. I think they're out of business now, but this applies. Well, this goes for you too, because once you educate yourself in what the going market rate is for your job, then you have a point in which you can negotiate. So that is your demand factor. Also take in mind, remember when I said, well, companies oftentimes offer you a salary based on what the previous person in that job was making. Well, think about this scenario. 5 years ago, this person was employed to work for the company, making $50,000 a year. Over the course of 5 years, he or she might have been given 2% performance appraisal increases. Over the course of 5 years, that makes it maybe $56,000, $57,000 a year. However, in 5 years, that person has gained multiple skill sets, very different from what he or she was earning or implementing at the beginning of the employment process. But are those skill sets being compensated at the right price point after 5 years? So that's why it's important for you to know your demand factor, know your market, what is being offered, and figure out how your skill sets fit into that range of wages or salaries that are being offered at the marketplace. So once you know that, then you know how much you should be asking for when you go to that job or that employer. The second thing is to know your leverage. You see, we all have something unique about us that we bring to the marketplace, to the table. What is your hook? What is your advantage? What makes you different from the competition? Know what that is and sell yourself accordingly. And that takes me to my third point, negotiating the wages and marketing yourself. This is something that most of us find difficult to do, right? Because we don't want to rock the boat, we don't want to ruffle feathers, we don't want to miss out on an opportunity. But guess what? Speak up and speak out, because you get what you ask for. And if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. Companies are not in the business to make you rich. They're in the business to make themselves profitable, and therefore think like an entrepreneur, because that's how entrepreneurs think. So at the end of the day, negotiating isn't about my way or the highway. It's about finding the right price point that matches your skills, your sensibility, and your time. That's how an entrepreneur thinks. That's how an employee should think. I'm Michael Robinson. This is your time. Use it wisely.